Do snipers account for the Coriolis effect or not?
Snipers?
Snipers.
Like people that shoot, like sniper rifles, people that snipe?
Yeah.
Does it account for the no, not necessarily, because I mean it depends. Actually, no, it does depend. It does depend, because if we're talking about like snipers in like Afghanistan, like at the fucking mountains or some shit, then yeah, there is.
Motivation and drop. There's no Coriolis involved. Thank you.
Okay, so we got a disagreement. Moving on. The point is that if the Earth is spinning underneath objects in a separate reference frame, the non-inertial reference frame, the Earth, is going to be spinning underneath it and moving away. So, if Felix Baumgartner landed 2,100 miles away, we would have to pack up and leave. But he actually landed 80 miles away. But get this, in the other direction. So there must have been winds moving him 1,080 or 780 miles faster, 80 miles faster than the spin of the Earth.
We don't use non-inertial reference frames, though, in science. We use inertial reference frames. That's
okay,
like the thing.
Apparently, you don't know about the Coriolis effect, so I'm gonna stop talking to you about it. Do some research.
What would you say, like, your genuine purpose of being here, Brendan, is?
Garners different perspectives and have constructive conversations.
What evidence would you need presented to you to, like, move closer to the goalpost about flat Earth and not what we're taught?
I would actually, believe it or not, similar to what the gentleman just mentioned regarding the Baumgartner example, except testing that in an inertial reference frame as opposed to a non-inertial one.
Did you say scientists don't use non-inertial reference frames?
No, I'm saying do what they did with the Baumgartner effect, but use that in an inertial reference frame. That same idea, test that in an inertial reference frame as opposed to one that's non-inertial.
Okay, the Earth is the non-inertial reference frame that's moving in your model. The atmosphere would be the inertial reference frame that's not moving. That's what it was tested in. So again, please do some research.
But the Earth is inert. You got it flipped. You got to flip it inverse.
No, I don't.
That's how I'd be convinced if you inverse that to like what it actually is.
And then, well, if the Earth is inertial, that means it's not accelerating, therefore not spinning. So I'll take that.
Strawmanning
that also means no Coriolis.
But I'm not strawmanning. No, I'm telling you what I would need to do. That's what I would need to have presented to be convinced. He asked a question. I gave you an answer.
So real quick, let's say, how high would you have to be then to experience that? Because I would, for me, just real quick, I would think I would have to be, I don't know, let's say, for example, a few thousand miles from the surface of the Earth, maybe even 4,000 miles to see it in its entirety, to then see it spin where I'm not connected to it anymore. And I can't do that.
I would, you know what? I would concur with that. I think that's a pretty good range of testing. Sure. Maybe it's about 1,000, maybe on the lower end of that range, about 1,000 miles.
Okay, so if you didn't experience that, or with like whatever resources or mechanics that you wanted to use, and you didn't see that observation, then what would you? I'm not just like trying to further along the thought of, okay, let's see that it confirmed that the Earth was stationary and not spinning. Then what?
Well, for me, I wouldn't have to necessarily like observe it, because there is. I do concur that our eyes can be deceived on many things, but something that could be, if it could be, quantitatively analyzed through that experiment, if that can be measured, then yeah, some form of measurement would be satisfactory to me. I don't have to necessarily like see it, the bear shit in the woods,
I'll puzzle something for you so that you can learn. Hopefully, you'll take a look at it.
Is it fair to then suggest other circumstantial evidence or evidence or observations into the bucket of, calling these different marbles. We put a marble. Okay, so we got that down. We put that marble in the flat earth. Now we have another marble here. Water, when contained, lays level and flat when at rest.
Mhm.
The shorelines contain the water from the oceans, thus the earth is flat.
Are you saying if that's something like that I could get behind based on the current line of thinking?
Obviously, we would have to disassociate ourselves with gravity. So yeah,
Sure.
water, when contained, lays level and flat when at rest. The oceans are contained by the shorelines, thus the earth is flat.
But then I can get there. I can meet you at that. But then it's like, okay, what about the sun and the moon? And I know then you have to factor in their influence, but like how do you explain that part then?
But we don't want to talk about the sky. We don't want to talk about the sky because that's not important to what we need to observe. We just just to continue this conversation, we just verified that the earth is not moving, right? From the previous marble that we put in flat earth. Now
Okay.
we're concluding that our observations with my cup of coffee, my pool outside, my hot tub when it's not bubbling, and the lake down the road, water, when contained, lays level and flat when at rest, almost like a mirror. It's mirror-like. It appears to be like a mirror because there's no wind. It's calm. And we just verify the earth isn't spinning. So, assuming there's waves and various things that go on with the ocean, but overall, water, when contained, lays level and flat when at rest. The ocean is contained by the shorelines, thus the earth is flat.
So then if I agree 1,000% with that, right, then the next thing would be, okay, so how do I then correlate that to what is currently observed as of right now? I mean, I look up, I see a very bright yellow thing in the sky. How does that influence my Earth?
Yeah, you'll have
And
plenty of time to figure out the reverse engineering stunt they did. Just let the server topic sink in.
But that's the only like barrier that I have to becoming a flat tard is how do I then, okay, I agree with that, right? Under that model, yes. I mean, that clearly makes sense. But then beyond that point, how do I then make that applicable? Well, not necessarily applicable, but how do I factor in external, I don't want to use the word force, but external things such as like the sun and the moon?
Yeah, so, okay. So we'll put that marble over here. So we got two marbles in the flat earth bin. Earth is stationary, not spinning or moving. And water, when contained, lays level and flat when at rest. So we have oceans which cover land. So like think about like you have a large lake. I have a lake here in Minneapolis, and I picture the circumference of that lake as being the outer edge, I guess, because water has to be contained. Otherwise, it just goes crazy. So it's level and flat when at rest. So we put in like some styrofoam. Let's say we put in some styrofoam continents in the middle of the lake. So you get to put in your North America, somebody will put in Mexico, and we'll have all of our continents lined up in the lake. So I would suggest to then think of a flashlight. Let's even just say 50 feet from the ground, 100 feet from the ground. We could do whatever we need to do in reference to that, but we would put the flashlight in such a way where part of my continent, Thailand, is over here, and your continent, North America, is over here. So I put the flashlight up high enough to where you can't see my flashlight, but I can see the light from that flashlight over Thailand. So I would suggest that the sun is small and local and not what we're taught 93 million miles away or further away. So that's where I would feel people get most confused is they think, well, the sun being the light source would then cover the entire flat earth. And so from perspective or using artistry in a way, that then you would be able to try to conclude that the sun has to be small and local, because one part of Earth experience light and another part of Earth experience darkness. And so to further that, the North Pole, we can agree, I'm sure, that a compass always points north, and circumnavigation would be from Thailand to North America, going in east or west direction. That compass is always going to point north. So then, using this visual, we're still on the lake, and we have all of our different, I'm sure you've seen the projection of the AE map. I'm not saying that this is correct or not, but I'm just kind of using this as a frame of reference, that then you would go from east or west, whichever direction we chose. Let's go west. So now we're going west, and that compass is always still pointing north, and then it's going to go in a circular fashion, where we're using the center, the North Pole, as a frame of reference with the compass, which is a mechanism that we could use so we don't get lost, because it's always going to point north. So I would suggest that that's the sun and the moon's orbit around Earth. They may or may not, I'm just suggesting, have a relationship with the North Pole, which is why they always have a specific height and distance for them. And so they're the ones that are circuiting over what we previously confirmed, that the Earth is stationary, and the sun and the moon and the luminaries are the ones that are moving and not us. So to get to your, well, what are the lights in the sky for? I would suggest that they're like a clock. The constellations have a certain time period to them. The moon obviously has a time period to it, and then the sun has a time period for it. So whoever created this place is just using the luminaries as a calendar for us, as us being simple-minded humans, to what would create this place, in my opinion, is just a giant clock. Why that is, I don't know. So that we don't live forever, so we have time, so we have like, imagine if the sun just stayed out all the time. Would you ever sleep? Would you ever feel the need to sleep? So that's why it goes away, so that we can sleep and we can regenerate. Like, imagine staying up for 3 days in a row and then going to work. You know, obviously that's a difficult task. That's why we have night and day, so we have to go to sleep. So does that kind of, you know, I'm not saying that this is for all flat earthers. I'm just saying, like, this is my perspective of what I've learned, having then previously known about the heliocentric model, having been taught what everybody's taught, the majority of people, what they're taught. And now I have that information, and then I'm bringing it into the flat earth concept. And so I'm able to compare the two. And I feel like that's where a lot of flat earthers have come to the conclusion of, okay, Earth is stationary and flat. Earth is stationary and not spinning. There's no detectable curvature, because water, when contained, lays level and flat when at rest. And then so thus the sun and the moon have to be local and small. So why they're telling us all of these things and kind of getting us starting off in the wrong starting point, I'm not sure. We can, you know, conclude all these different things, but the motive is not important. What's important is what they're telling us about what we live on. The Earth is spinning. The sun and the moon, or the moon's rotating around this ball that we live on, that is spinning at a particular, to them, detectable degree of spin, 23.4 degrees, which creates the seasons. And thus we're attracted to the sun at a particular point, the Goldilocks zone, in between two other planets, you know, Mercury and Mars. And then we have the sun that's moving at a certain speed. inside towards a great attractor, which is connected to more gravity. And so that's why when I discuss this with people, it's hard, I get it, but you have to disassociate yourself from the term gravity to then say why water would lay level and flat when at rest. So it's not sticking and clinging to the exterior of a shape. Thus, that's spinning, because if we experience, a tennis ball that's wet and we spin it, the water is going to beat off of it. And we could do that for so long, for such a period of time, hook the wet tennis ball up to a drill, for example, and we could all get wet with the water. But eventually, if we do that long enough, all the water from that tennis ball is going to evaporate or be beaten off from the spin. And so then they conclude and they teach us on purpose that gravity is the force which holds the water to the earth. But we can't experience that, and I can't go high enough, like we were saying before. I want to go high enough to see the earth spin, so I can see that. Like, I want to see God's creation, in my opinion, God's creation. I want to see our great creator's creation spin in a 24 to 48 hour period, so that I can have in my heart, I can conclude that in my heart. But for me now, that doesn't make my heart comfortable. Doesn't make my heart comfortable to think I have to be so far away to see the earth spin in a 48 hour period and then come back and be like, wow, I live on a big giant beach ball. And so I haven't been able to do that. So I have to rationalize with myself. Do I want to give my authority and my reasoning over to other people I've never met before who have their own motives to deceive me about where I live for future plans about why things are happening? For a lot of people, a lot of flat earthers would conclude that there's going to be a fake alien invasion, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, these aliens from another planet are here from like Independence Day, or all these other science fiction movies about aliens invading Earth. That would be my conclusion of why they have come up with the heliocentric model and everything, because they want to disassociate themselves from possible other lands that might be here, or other people who have always been here, who are manufacturing the idea that outer space is real to deflect from who they are.
No, that's not true.
So
Yeah, I was just that was a good like little synopsis of your point of view. I appreciate that, man. Yeah. I was just trying to film the eclipse, right? And I'm holding the camera there. I got the camera up, and it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The sun moves out of the camera, moves out of it, right? And I go, all right, let me move the camera back over. I zoom in on it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's gone. It's out of the view again. Then somebody, I said, I showed it to somebody. Said that's the Earth moving. Unbelievable, how far gone people are in their heads. Am I echoing?
Reverb. Turned on the reverb.
What's reverbing that?
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what happens when you hold your phone up to the eclipse.